Hi there, this is Joe Corneli, joined by Dilrakshi, Doug, and Laura. And Dilrakshi, if you'd be so kind, tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days. You were telling me about the Stanford MOOC you're involved with. Is that public information? Tell us a little bit more about your work on that.
Yeah, it's not a MOOC. It's called Open Research. They call it Open Research. There's 500 worldwide researchers working on one crowdsource application where we want to build a better crowdsource market for everybody. We were taking examples from Mechanical Turk, saying that it's sometimes the wages are unfair, so we want to make the whole parties, fair enough for the work that they do. So within our crowd, we are experimenting how to start up an organization, how to govern within the crowd, as well as working as one research group. We submit we published one paper with one of the HCI conference, and also we submitted another top tier conference, CHI, with around 56 collaborated authors. We all worked in the same project. Our author ranks were taken as there's a mechanism that we ranked each other for the author ranks. We follow the Google page rank mechanism, and working with the worldwide researchers made really interesting to learn from each other while working towards one project. So yeah,
That sounds
we are just
interesting. Yeah, that
about.
would be great. Great. I'd love to see a link to that because it sounds really grim. Yeah, like I said, I was telling you before, I wrote a paper probably 2 years ago for this CHI Chi or whatever you call it, Chai. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you've definitely taken the next step, more authors and a cooler algorithm. So I'd really love to have a look at that. Doug, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been working on something called the Values Manifesto, which is a sort of book statement of thesis on what we touched on last week, and waiting for Amanda graphics as a sort of a final touch, and then we're looking to circulate and roll out to a short list of people for thoughts, inputs, and validation, challenge, and sort of hypothesis testing. And the premise is using a values audit within the context of large global corporations, sort of the heart of darkness, and using a values audit as a catalytic mechanism to reintroduce the human beings back into those organizations. So it's an organization-wide values audit. There's stated values, there are the tacit and implicit values, there are the de facto values reflected by their actions and the consequences thereof. And as everybody sort of knows intuitively, there's a huge delta between their stated values and their actual reflected values. And our thesis is that if you get those things into alignment, you can do a hell of a lot better than you've been doing by the world and by your bottom line. And it starts and stops by empowering and enabling and giving voice to all of the human beings in your organization. So bottom up, and the idea is catalyze chaos and catalyze disorder, but enable and empower and give voice to everybody and make a commitment to organizational responsiveness to those voices and work out how to deal with it under fire. So we're literally pure agents of catalytic change. We are not selling a program. We're not selling a language. We're not selling handshakes, software, platforms, tools, technology. We're working on the basis that all the ingredients to make soup already exist in these organizations, and the only thing missing is impressing the human beings in those organizations to transform them.
Cool. So I know you're in. I know you're. Well, keep this kind of quiet. You're somewhere in New Jersey. Is that not? Is that?
I am. I'm sort of like, greater metro New York. I'm in
Yeah, but even
like
that's
northern New Jersey. Yeah.
spread south, and because Ray's like in Passaic, which is straight west of the city. Then if
Yeah,
you go
not
down,
far. Yeah, we're not far apart. We're
not
not
far
far
from.
apart.
My dad's in Pennington, and his company NRG. If you've been following the news, they've been having like their stock has been going. Am I drawing this the right way? Going like
Yes.
that, going down.
Yeah.
It's been going like that, and it started out down here. That was like 10 years ago, and he's been going through a lot of tumult. But the interesting thing about that example is like one of the things that kicked it on the down was like they were going, yes, green, we want to have lots of green, and the stockholders were kind of, wait a second, how are you going to make money doing that? And all your money comes from this. Anyway, I won't go too much into details, but nevertheless, it'd be a really interesting case study for your project there, because I think they were trying to embrace some values, but I don't know what happened. Maybe they tripped over their own shoelaces. Anyway, that's still getting. But I think that's an interesting example. Like, if you not only doing it, but like getting it done and doing it right.
Well, it's the universe of I call it we refer to it as our ecosystem. In the old school industrial era languaging, it would be our competition, or all the folks paddling around in the red ocean having to do with organizational transformation and process improvement. And there are a universe of providers and companies and programs and things that corporations gobble up like popcorn and spend billions of dollars on to help fix themselves. And 99% of them, to our mind, don't work. They tend to lose momentum as soon as the people are gone that brought them. And the missing ingredient in all of that, and the sort of 3.0 obvious answer is, it's your people. Like, you have human beings, and if you stop relating to them as resources, and you empower and enable them to contribute, they actually have the wherewithal to transform your organization for a 3.0 world. And do you really have to worry about it crashing and burning and going out of business? No. Do you have to worry about the wheels stopping in terms of whatever it's producing or providing? No. There's just way too much institutional mass and momentum for that to be even a realistic fear. But do you need to change how you're doing what you're doing? For a very obvious, immediate reason, yeah. If you're Volkswagen and all of a sudden you wake up and your down payment on the caca that you've created is $7 billion in casualty loss set aside, and that's a down payment, and this company's going to spend 15 years digging themselves out of the hole they dug for themselves. Every major national, international multi-conglomerate out there is in the same crapper, and they know it. And they're just waiting for the shoe to drop. And my thesis is, fold your tents now, let it happen to you, or there's a third choice. Like, you can actually roll up your sleeves and say, maybe we need to clean ourselves up.
It's really interesting that the social aspect of it, because I think I definitely don't think that this energy was greenwashing. I think they were really putting their money where their mouth was. But I think, yes, the social side of it inside the company might not have been perfect. But anyway, let's go on from that. Sad. Laura, tell us about what's going on with you. How's things? The semester's in
full swing. I've got my music students doing my open course that I self-host on my website. So it's called MUS 654, and it's all about building a curriculum, which is one of those funny things that nobody actually teaches you how to do. But as music teachers, everyone has to do it from a basic, the day you start teaching anyone. And so we've been deconstructing music and musical learning and all the components that go with it and putting them back together. And this week we've graduated from like sound and physical development and all those things to repertoire. And so the big question of this week was, I threw out there, and it's interesting because I've tried different platforms. I tried Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook, and I said, musicians, what do you do? How do you find new stuff to learn? And it's funny because in music, it's not like a library. You don't have a card catalog or a database that says this is a good one and here's what it's like. And so I've been getting some answers, and we, you said before we started, you said about how the smallest MOOC, I think I run the smallest MOOC, it's like a mini MOOC, but the what we added this year, so I've got content, and they all do their content, and they do some activities, and we put it together, and we talk about it in person, and other people can do content as well. But we started doing Hangouts once a week and talking about it and getting in a guest every week, so the guest talks about what's going on as well and their experience professionally and how they learned. And it's been a really good thing for connecting with the students and bringing them out of their shells and one level up to teach them lots of different skills that you certainly can't learn in a classroom. So there's that. And on the other front, that links to what Doug's doing. I've got I wrote a book that's coming out this Friday, so that's exciting. But that's on fostering self-efficacy in higher education students. So it's all of that self-belief in what you do and how to why it's important, and how to teach teachers to teach so their students can actually be the ones who are learning and believing, so they're set up to go away and do things.
Cool. Well, don't forget to share that to our Peeragogy in Action community. I don't think that will be considered spam. I think it'll be very welcome to promote it there.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. By the way, my neighbor, speaking of this week, my neighbor has a CD of the week, I don't know, on BBC something or whatever, so she's a cellist. It's a CD of Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and then someone else did another interpretation of the Four Seasons, so it's like two Vivaldis, one you've heard and a new one. So that's out now, but it's not out yet. It's the CD of the week, but it's not even out yet, so she showed it to me. But anyway, she might be really interested to join as a guest. I don't know if she's too savvy with Hangouts, but I can ask. I tried to put you in touch. I tried to put her in touch with you. Let's try one more time.
Or if I'm allowed to contact her, I certainly will, because I've also interviewed people, who aren't so up for Hangouts, or they're too busy, or so I'll interview them, and then the interview gets embedded
into that. Yeah, maybe we could do it that way. Well, okay. I also found out yesterday, because she announced that she has a website now, so I'll help you with that, and maybe you.
Brilliant.
She's a teacher. She organizes music. I think you'd be anything. Anyway, like last couple people for updates. Paola and then Dorothea, we have not seen you for quite a while. I remember when I visited with you, I was in San Francisco. That was not so long ago, but welcome back to that hangout. Yeah, maybe Paola, you want to tell us what's up real quick, and then Dorothea as well, and then we can go on to this editing.
Hi, I have been absent. I was traveling, but I'm back. I have been working in many things at the same time, but now our next task is to finish a post for this portal, this Argentinian portal, that is due on Wednesday. But we'll try to finish it soon.
Okay, so we should write that now. We have this draft material in English, which is good. Translating just some of that would be an interesting exercise, and hopefully we'll generate some more. But we got a good start. And Dorothea, how are you doing? And what's up?
Hello. I'm now at a co-working space in Berlin, and I'm just here to catch up today quickly because I have to go soon. We had an event here last weekend, and about decentralization, so it's a little bit related, or everything is related. Like peer-to-peer learning and this kind of connotations. Yeah, but I'd like to catch up quickly, and then I'll have to go soon. So just saying hi to everyone.
Hi. Yeah, nice to see you again. And you saw this doc because I saw you signed on to it before. If you want to add comments in the first part, or Dorekshi as well, anyone who wasn't here, Paola, the first section, and I'm going to switch over to screen share, so I'll still be here, but I'm going to screen share this one. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that. So, Doug, maybe you want to run through what we did last time, but basically we were typing in what brought us to the project. So if you just sort of type in why am I here, then we'll have some more data about that. Anything else to add on that, Doug? I can't hear you though.
I think the punchline to it, which is sort of above, which I sort of started to introduce, was Peeragogy Handbook Group Values. So it is sort of important to actually state them, like what are our shared values. And I started the list with things that I've experienced and I sort of feel around my involvement with the folks that have been involved with Peeragogy. But this is intended to be the start of a list, not the end of a list. So folks are invited and well capable of adding to it and augmenting it. And the idea is to really have this being a growing frame and stake in the ground on what the values are that we all agree to bring to our contribution, involvement, engagement with this project and this community as a community. And they inform how we do that. They inform what we do. They inform, values at this sort of fundamental level really inform and define and qualify everything that goes on. So, part of the respectfulness and the collegiality, the acceptance and openness of this endeavor and this community and the sort of level and nature of the exchange are reflective of underlying values, make those explicit. And once that list has been defined, it's not fixed, it can always be added to. But values in this frame are not competitive. They're also, and they're cumulative. So it can always be added to, but never really reduced. And in the spirit of an abundance-centered 3.0 agenda. And that once it sort of, has been fleshed out, and if everybody agrees, that, everybody effectively becomes a signatory to a social contract that says, what I do, I'm going to do in service to upholding and supporting and reinforcing these shared values. That's it.
Now I'm speaking. So the thing was that, yeah, somehow that connected with what brought you here, like why are you here? And someone I think it was Laura pointed out that you don't always get the chance to speak with like-minded people. Was that you? I remember Maria said something similar, that in other contexts you feel like you're dragging people into this kind of space. Here you don't have to worry about that. You can just kind of jump into it. Like Dorothea was saying, like there's other places where people do that. In fact, I was looking back at the interview that Dorothea and Paola did. There's other places that Dorothea said something really interesting. That there's other places where people share some similar values, but we have a little bit of an extra magical interest in how it all works. That even if they share values, they're not always as interested in how it works. I think that's what we were getting at. And then today, let me zoom down here. I took a lot of notes. We're hoping to do the metacognition map, and I know some people want to get going. So it would be great to introduce it, Doug. If you can say a bit more about that and how this connects with part one. Maybe we get a 5 minutes of intro. Those who have to leave can still participate for 5 more minutes, maybe, and then everyone else can bang at it. But yeah, you can come back online and keep adding to this metacognition map when you have time to do that.
So I put some sort of opening notes which are framing what this is sort of the domain and what this is about. And the premise of Metacognition Map is not what are we doing. It's not what's the project, what's the goal. It's not, that's sort of not the beginning of the story. Before you get to the what, the values sort of address the how. This is more about the pre-inventory of what do we have to work with. And from a human being-centered place, there's a yin and yang to that. So each individual comes bringing their own set of skills, their own experience, their own talents, their own interests, their own passions. And that's a unique signature representing a unique array of values to be contributed to the collective. Conversely, the collaboration as a community has sort of a responsibility to each individual in the community to support and to facilitate, as much as it's possible to do, everybody contextualizing and placing themselves in the doing of whatever the project is. So what do I mean by that? If there's somebody, if you sort of imagine a cube consisting of a bunch of layers, the metacognition map is really a machine, and there are different layers to that cube. So one layer to that cube is there's information coming in from the left, and there's information going out to the right to public. There's information going up to other groups or other collaborations, and there's information going down on that layer for internal purposes and use, and there are transformations being done to those inputs and work processes and the like from where they enter to where they exit, right? So associated with that is a workflow, but associated with that are different tasks and jobs. So one person might be really, really into gathering, researching, right? Another person may be really into processing, digesting, vetting. Another person may be into synthesizing and summarizing. Another person may be into formulating and presenting in terms of literally layout and graphics and presentation. So different people have different skill sets, different passions and centers of maximum value of contribution to bring. And how do we figure that out relative to each other? And how do we locate people in a map so that everybody knows what resources are available contextually as a collective, and how does each individual know where they stand in the frame, right? So one layer is stuff coming in and stuff going out. Another layer is the workflows associated, whatever the processing is that's going on as a function of the collaboration. Notice I haven't spoken about what the collaboration is doing yet, what it's focusing on, what the project is. It's irrelevant in this conversation. This is meta that. This is like whatever the it is, how are we doing that? And instead of relating to it from an industrial model, which is purely about productivity and deadlines and project plans, we're prioritizing the human beings in the collaboration who are going to be doing the work or contributing first. And it's addressing the human beings on a human being level, on a multidimensional level, and they bring social value, they bring expertise, skills, talents, professional value, they bring attentional and time value, they bring feeling value, they bring spiritual value, they bring a whole array of values. And some people speak to a leadership function or a facilitation function, and some people speak to and are more comfortable in a follower place, in a team place, you know, just tell me where to sit and let me get to work doing what I do. right? So all of those human being variables, the idea is to contextually set up a frame that enables that to be explicit and declared.
Yeah.
And I think it's really facilitative of collaborative effort. And it's the step that everybody skips. They go right to, what are we doing? But it's sort of a big step.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this meeting, and I'm sad that some people are going to have to go, but I'm glad that you came, even if you have to go, because it's such an exciting opportunity. I mean, we've been banging away at this Peeragogy project for like 5 years, and I think we've often been at this part 3. I know when I started this document, I jumped in at part 3, and Doug was like, "Oh, wait a second, let's go back a little bit," and hence we did the part 1. But part 2, I think I'm especially excited about because we covered that in the Peeragogy handbook, and if you look on peeragogy.org, like the intro, there's a little exercise that we got started with. I'll click through to that and put that in the chat. You'll see our initial thing, our initial start. Scroll way down. Exercise. How do you see yourself fitting in? If you scroll down about probably 2/3 of the way down the page on that, there's our initial thing. Am I screen sharing that? Yes, I guess I am. So, how do you see yourself fitting in? Leader, co-leader, manager, co-manager. What are your potential contributions? Create, originate, research. But we haven't ever gone through this as a group really and sort of said, yeah, this is me. That part's Joe. This part's Dilrukshi. This part's Dorothea. This part's Doug, etc., etc. With everybody. And some people, what else would we say? Like maybe Charlie would say, my role is I'm still very involved with the project, but I'm not here today. Charlotte as well. This is a day for winning if you have the name starting with D. I think if you have the name starting with C, less exciting for you today. But like Dorothea or like Paula was saying, like we have all these notes. Is Paula really comfortable taking on the role of like synthesizing these notes and then writing up a publication for Wednesday? If so, maybe. What kind of help does she need as well? So those are interesting questions. Like how do we work together? So I propose that we should just kind of take some time and write that into the document. I don't really want to take notes. I mean, we could go around, but that's what I propose. So if people would be willing to try just writing in some of their thoughts and brainstorms and questions, that would be one thing I propose. I have other things I might propose, but what do you guys think about that? So
part of this also, by the way, is the reason I sort of invoked the map meme is because if you superimpose stuff coming in and stuff going out and the processes in the middle, and you superimpose a grid on top of that where you break down the various types of processing that go on, and it's sort of a magic quadrant thing. I'm looking for the graphic there's a graphic of a metacognition map that I started, and a fellow named Joachim Stroh really brought home that he called the metacognition, that he worked up as sort of a graphic grid that covered the different types of processing and work, and covered in a mapping, in a layout grid, table fashion, and people could literally sort of place themselves. And we actually, in another project, actually had people using their G+ photo. They literally would place it on that and sort of like, I belong here. Like, this is what I want to do. And what it did is it becomes a reference. It becomes a graphical reference for, I need help with this. And you go to that area and you go, okay, I'm looking for somebody who does graphical work as an augmentation for something that's going to be published. And, all of a sudden you'd find Amanda there. You follow?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important dimension to this.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's one thing to sort of have lots of words, but in terms of figuring out graphical mapping mechanisms for quickly figuring out, where do I have to go, who do I have to speak to? Oh, there are these people over here that have volunteered for editorial service. I can send something out to 5 of them and go, anybody available for this time frame to edit this up, and forward it to somebody else downstream who's ready to catch it to then incorporate it in, whatever. So that's sort of the vision of this.
Cool. Well, I think we can definitely do that. The one thing the 2 questions I have are what. I mean, obviously, people can add things to the list, so that's not. That's easy. You can add more things to the list. So if you don't see your favorite thing to do on this list, just add it. That's easy. The question I have is, what about learning, or like the challenges? So we talked about what people are good at. What about the things that people are, I don't know, less good at, or challenged by, or frustrated by? Those things seem important too. And so I want to just jump out and say, like, I've been very happy to work on the website, and I've gotten some help with that from Fabrizio, but I'm less happy to find that it's just me and Fabrizio working on the website these days, and that I think is something where I could use a bunch of help, but I don't know. So I'm part of that, and part of that story where you described, but I'm not yet in the part of story where, I'm finding a bunch of people who say, oh, I really want to work on the website. But maybe those people exist, and then I think if those people exist, then it's going to be one more iteration, maybe in part 3, to think about, okay, they want to help, I want help, sounds like a match made in heaven, but like what work needs to happen for that to happen? So is there a way to specify those kinds of wishes?
I think people have to be really open and honest, because I think it's partly scary. I mean, you might say, what if you say, I'm a leader? And actually, that's not a popular thing to say, because actually, if it's a peeragogy thing and we all have different roles to play, and you're a leader, I'm quite a leader often, but I like to lead in a quiet way, but it might not be something that you want to say necessarily. So I might recraft that role and say, actually, I'm a leader, but I don't want to be in the forefront. I don't want to have my name out there, or something like that. So I think I would hope that at least in the beginning we could have fuzzy roles that say, I'm really good at this, here's some skills I have, but I also need help with this, and it's not a solitary role.
Well, if I can unpack a little bit of what both of you said, because there are a couple of things you're bringing in, right? One is, people have to be sort of clear and self-knowing and mindful, which is a huge presumption, about what they're good at. And some people, may really think they're great at something that they're not necessarily great at, and other people may think they're not so good at something that they're brilliant at. So there's a self-awareness and knowingness element to this that has to be open and inclusive. And it's in the collective's interest to figure out how to help folks dial that stuff in. So there are feedback loops involved in that, which is there have to be mechanisms for people to let other people know, great job, mediocre job, really crappy job, maybe you should be thinking about doing something else as a day job. All of those human things become equally prioritized to the doing. And there's something really interesting about language that you raised, Laura, when, I use the term facilitator or facilitation because it's in a 3.0 frame. It works. The meme of leader and leadership is so laden with 2.0 power, authority, and control that I don't even invoke it, and I don't sort of promote that idea. I don't challenge all the people that are in the leadership business. There's a lot of money made teaching people how to lead, quote unquote, but I don't think there's a lot of room for that in the future if we're going to survive. So in the context of collaborative endeavors, I think there's a lot of need and room for facilitators, people that coordinate, multiple people's efforts and help people succeed. And I think the learning part that Joe raised is a whole nother dimension, which is part of my reason for wanting to be here is to learn this skill X that I've always wanted to learn and I don't know how to do and I haven't mastered. And that's part of the self-disclosure too, right? That's part of saying, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn, and I have attention to invest, which is a value, in the learning, and I'm willing to, be in training to or subordinate to somebody who's going to teach me.
Okay.
And that becomes a dimension of the collaborative matrix and setting up the communication channels, mechanisms, and means for people to express that and be incorporated on that basis.
So cool. Well, we now suddenly have a slightly smaller group, which makes it seem a little bit more manageable for actually doing this exercise. Dilrekshi, are you in it for the next 20 minutes or so? I know your time zone's that difficult.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock, but I can hang out for 10
11.
minutes.
I thought it was 1:30. So, okay, good. I have to plug in my, well, you can't see me anyway. You wouldn't know I was disappearing. I've got to go grab my power cord, otherwise this thing is going to run out. But, yeah, Doug and Ola, do you want to just try it? I mean, you guys have been here since the very beginning, so, like, what do you think? How would you, I would say, like, add these things. Like, I liked what Laura was saying about the leader being a kind of uncomfortable thing. So, like, I think maybe I would just nominate all of us, those of us who are here, who are, So I've just tried signing up on behalf of those of us who are here as co-leaders. I realize that's not saying a lot, but like, but I think we are. Like, we wouldn't be doing this project, we wouldn't be doing this exercise if it wasn't for all the people who are here, really, and it's not many of the people who are not here, actually. So I'm making that purple. So that was my contribution while I go run off to get my power cord. But if you guys have other things to add or comment, go ahead. It's like going to take me 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay. So Paola, how would you define you? This is the declaration. Now, by the way, it's not a declaration doesn't equal an assumption. Meaning, my saying I can doesn't mean I am agreeing to.
Well, as you said, I cannot be completely aware of what I am.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you call the question, right? We're so busy doing, we don't really think about what we are. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I like to say, like, when I have to define what I like to do, I don't know if I'm good at that, but I like to make connections. I like to know people and make people know each other. I don't know if I'm good at that, but I like to do it.
So
a connector.
So a translation of that would be a connector networker.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Yes. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, I've gotten feedback from people as well in the past that I'm good at that, so I think I also like that. I think the nice thing about that is that we can have more than one. We don't have to, like, we don't even have to trade off. We can both do it at the same time. So that's a good skill. But yeah, I'll sign up on that too. So, how about you, Doug? And where do you think you would locate? This is a trippy question. Where do you think you would locate the activity that you have, this activity? Where do you think you would locate your role in proposing this? I mean, you always say catalyst. Is that on here? Maybe we need a catalyst on this.
Yeah, I would. I think that suits/fits the most. I'm sort of network weaver. So I don't know that I'm social enough to be the connector networker role, that I'm much too aligned with being introspective and a hermit in terms of my comfort set point, but I'm a network weaver in terms of seeing how systems weave together, how groups and subgroups interact and flow, and the catalyst function is sort of throwing out the ideas and the challenges to say, if this makes sense to you, if this makes the same sense to you that it makes to me, then if we go down this road, what will we discover? What will manifest? And the list we're looking at now was actually from a previous incarnation of seeding the metacognition idea out there. And different pieces and parts of that puzzle have gotten traction at different times over the years with this project. But Joe, you had the networking facility to go, we've done that over here back then. And you just invoked and brought this whole thing forward that absolutely is exactly what I was talking about and plugs in. And we did a bunch of work and intentional investment in. That's sort of the complementary function to what I do catalytically. You also have a sort of collective awareness of what's been created over the tenure of this project.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, right.
That's another function, right? Yeah. It's almost an archival mind.
You talked about the box with the lines going down, and that's kind of like salting it away for future, or possibly refining it. You're sifting it through and salting away the stuff you want to.
Yeah, the internal aggregation is the down arrow, and in that bottom left quadrant, there's an aggregation and a curation and a stirring and iterative process of, different generations of this kind of work adding up. So and you just harvested from that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Dorakshi, maybe you could say, I know we haven't always had you here, but I would be really interested to know. Both about this project, and also you're saying you're working in this other project concurrently to lay out some other stuff. I wonder if you're going about it in the same way, and what your roles are there, and all that kind of stuff.
In the project that I work now, we don't have leaders, but I mean it's similar to what you have now. But let's say in a crowd, we don't, it's hard to recognize leaders. Because we don't have specific category how to identify leaders. But if I say that I initiate an idea, and if I want to run that, then I'll become a directly responsible individual. We call them DRIs, where I don't have to be specifically a leader, but I'm responsible for that idea, that I have to make sure that idea is coming to a function, it comes to reality, or at least I have to try that, because I'll be responsible, or as I take an initiative as a crowd to take that idea from the crowd. So there'll be other DRIs taking the other idea. So each and in that way, we make sure that whatever the ideas are not wasted. At the end, there's somebody. I can't be saying, I just said the idea, but I couldn't work on it, because if I'm the DRI, I should be having some, at least, responsibility to say something, whether it worked or not. So in that way, we make sure the productivity.
That sounds really. I would like to know what DRI stands for, but it sounds really reminiscent of something I read in this really short summary of holacracy, that in a meeting, you might not have an agenda at the start, you would have more of an agenda by the end of the meeting. You would have assembled all these things, and if we said, for example, like we realize such and such is important, distilling all of this stuff down into a document is important, then we need to know who's gonna actually do that, who's gonna follow up with that. If we have to do some networking or outreach, who's going to do that? how are we going to go about it? How are we going to check the progress? And by the end of the meeting, we should know the tasks and who's responsible. So yeah, what does DRI stand for? Do you know that?
Directly responsible individual.
Ah, okay, cool.
I think that's one of the way that Apple handled their employees without making leaders, because they thought like having leaders and subordinates make the creativity and then the sharing ideas will restrict a little bit, but having them in equal level, or else at least I can be DRI today, but my subordinate can be the DRI next day. So it's a round,
Yeah.
you're not you're not the leader every day, and everybody get a chance. So that empowers the crowd.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you. I mean, I think one of the things we said about this project, the reason it's successful is we have multiple different leaders. Maybe we should have said multiple different GRIs. I think that feels better than saying different. I like that better. But at the same time, I think, yeah, to go back to that frustration thing. And then last week I said, what keeps me coming back is I'm really interested in helping the group to build its skills. And I think I said, we're like a team of superheroes, but a little bit like clumsy, awkward superheroes that haven't quite learned all of their superhero skills yet. And in our own personal lives, we do interesting things. We come together, once a week or more often to do stuff here, and we've maintained that. We continue to be interested, but I feel like there's things we could do that would take that up to the next level, whatever that is. I'm not even sure where that's going, but I feel that's kind of a facilitator role. The facilitating and upscaling the group is kind of a facilitator role. It reminds me of something Paola wrote about when we did the survey, because she was saying, I'm learning a lot, but I wonder if I'm teaching other people. So just to remind that you 2 years ago who said that one has really stuck with me, Paula. So I think that did teach me something. That's a good question to ask. And so how can we do that? How can we teach and share or facilitate upskilling people in the group? I don't know. Of course, that's something I would like to learn. Basically, I'm not claiming that I'm good at it, but I would like to know more about how to do that. So I'm gonna turn myself here. I'll pick a different color to look at learning how. I'll call that orange. It's a nice color.
Well, clearly, people that are teachers, people that are good at facilitating people in learning, which is a specialized kind of facilitation, is something that can be declared and defined, and I think the attention to openness and inclusion and not creating barriers to entry or participation have a lot to do with encouraging people and supporting people to step up, even if they're not comfortable and they don't know. But saying, I have time, I have attention, I have will, I have passion, teach me and I'd be glad to fish. So, I think there's really a cultural dimension to that, because there's so much, people carry so much imprinted fear that there isn't even conscious, it's almost behaviorally reflexive, that it's not safe and it's not okay to not know, or it's not safe and it's not okay to be visible and to take risks and chances. And there's a cultural dimension to creating the environment that encourages and enables and welcomes people to volunteer and engage, and facilitate and support them in their learning and their contribution in doing. So, part of that is onboarding, part of that is openness and invitation. And if there's a value to serving others as a shared group value, then somebody who knows teaching somebody who doesn't know, or facilitating and helping somebody else to learn what they know, goes with that.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing here now is kind of if we all pick, if we were to all pick one thing we're fairly confident and fairly, so I think like Paula and I are both saying we both like networking. Hopefully, not everyone is going to show up and just like networking. Otherwise, we can't learn anything really new. So it's okay to have some people because we're sympathetic. But so far we've got a few purple signups. But like, if we also have some signups about like what would you like to do that you don't feel good at? And so that's why I signed up on the facilitator thing, is because I think I end up facilitating a lot of things like conversations, but I don't think I'm really very good at facilitating the upskilling of the group. I don't think I'm great at it. I think I'm good at keeping the ball rolling, and I think we all collectively are keeping the ball rolling. But I think that actually I think Doug, you this idea that you've initiated is I really like it because I think it's a way to get into upskilling the group. So I think I can learn some stuff about how you're doing it as well as hopefully we'll do it. Do you want to add anything else of your role, or Doug, any other?
Well, what you just said is interesting because there's a role called facilitator, but facilitator isn't in a vacuum. So maybe facilitator is a role that sort of necessarily involves a qualifier. And one kind of facilitation is in teaching somebody, helping somebody learn. Another role in facilitation is, the sort of common association of helping a group of people around a table be heard and have the opportunity to participate. Another kind of facilitation is project management, helping keep the trains running on time and moving things forward and following up with people. There are different flavors and colors. And so it's sort of interesting for us to drill down and get that concrete about it. That there are roles that are sort of functions, like I edit, and editing is editing, right? And for somebody who does graphic or graphic arts, there are a lot of variations on the theme. Somebody who does Photoshop isn't somebody who does what Amanda does, isn't somebody who does fine art, isn't somebody who does logos and layout, right? So in getting into the roles and functions, really sort of figuring that out and drilling that down in a way that facilitates people self-declaring.
Yeah.
That's part of this idea, which is, okay, so how as a collaborative community can we facilitate the onboarding of somebody, and if they arrive and here's a spreadsheet or here's a Q&A that automatically does the pathing, and it's a form and it drills them down and gets them to where it feels best, right? They don't have to develop it on the fly, they don't have to reinvent any wheels, and if that tool is augmented and added to as people come with new skills and new talents. And if there isn't something on the list, they add a line to the checklist.
Yeah. Although I think for now, this is a pretty good tool. It fits on one screen. I think.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm just sort of extrapolating where this piece of it goes.
Yeah. This teaching onboarding. I think. Indeed, as time goes by, but I think even though Charlotte was like champing at the bit, let's just get on with it. I feel like if Charlotte was here today, she would see in this meeting the value of continuing to come back to this, at least to this page, because it's not that clear yet. Even for leaving aside newcomers, even considering those people who are here, how do we fit together What are we really trying to do? Stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got 5 more minutes. I don't know for practical terms. I wonder if the data we gathered last time, which I typed almost everything everyone said almost verbatim, we could make a little essay that says, you know, why have people joined the Peeragogy project? I think we could refine those things into that essay. And Paul, if our deadline is Wednesday, I would be happy to help with that activity. But I wonder if that's enough. I wonder if that's enough, like a satisfying enough essay. I mean, we've got lots of text, but
Yes, absolutely.
should be enough. I mean, we've got this kind of draft, which is kind of like an interview, and we can look back at the other interview, which is also on this page. I shrank this last time. Like I took out about half of it because I thought it was a little bit repetitive. But I think what's left is really interesting. When do you do pedagogy? So I think that would be also worth having a look back at this, and maybe we could even use some of these quotes. Sorry, no, I'm clicking on the wrong page. Some of these quotes here, you know, move them into the interview. So kind of officially rewrite that interview. So in that case, then I would say we even have a bit of a draft of the essay, you know, this interview as you, Lisa, and Dorothea, you know. So if you felt like you want to translate something that's fixed and stable, I don't think that part's going to change that much. But we could add some more into it. How do you do it? I think it might be especially about the why. Let's see, what is peer learning? Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, maybe we don't even have a why. Oh, why do you do pedagogy? Yeah, but it's just got this one. I edited it away, so it's just got this one answer from you. So I think if we filled in some more there, I think we could round it out a little bit. I just didn't like the previous one because I think you all were just saying it's the same for me and I agree with you and stuff. Keep it interesting. But anyway, yeah. So we have a decent draft of something, an interview. I think that if I was in Argentina, I would want to read this. I mean, I'd want to read it no matter where I was. It had such great editing. That was another role. I'm going to send it. I did that. Let's try to contribute to that, to revising that essay, if we can. I'll create a new document just with a work in progress version of that. I'll share with you guys and anybody else.
Cool.
For Wednesday.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. But yeah, I think I think we're going to have to come right back in here next Monday. I don't think we're done. Besides, a lot of people weren't here. But yeah, Direcshi, thanks so much for teaching us about this directly responsible individual. I feel really good about that. We had previously had team leaders, which I didn't never like that term, and I think the leader.
That leader meme is a real killer.
Was it a team leader that we used to have back in the?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was invoked. I didn't react to it, but
Two terms that I didn't like put together in one.
Yeah, it brings such a powerful package of crap with it. Yeah. It's just insane.
Yeah,
and people
you're
just
right.
they take it for granted. It's reflexive because we're all programmed. But it has instilled in it power, authority, control. Like those are the memes of quote leadership. And
yeah, well, this is another thing we didn't even get into this potential motivations today, you know. But we did talk about acquiring training or support. So I guess that's one of the valences. I signed it with orange. Maybe I'll just turn this one orange as a memo to everyone, including myself, to remember that that's an orange motivation above.
Yeah, and some of the basics on that are being valued, being appreciated, being acknowledged, being recognized. Like those are really primary human drivers for why people get involved with things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people that have come here and have contributed have derived a feeling of satisfaction, but also acknowledgement, recognition by the other folks in the project.
Yeah.
Because whenever anybody's contributed, that's always been part of this.
Yeah. So that wasn't even on the list, though, I don't think. I mean, we got feedback, but acknowledgement kind of, goes beyond that, I think. So anyway, yeah, thank you again, Doug. So this and Paula, some of these comments from, from 2 years ago, they continue to apply, and sorry about the delay in some cases of getting back to that. This one in
Well,
particular.
linear time is an illusion.
Okay, well that's reassuring.
So if you flatten the whole project down to right here, right now, in a Jungian synchronistic way, all this stuff is coming to bear. It's perfect.
That's really good.
Exactly when it was supposed
to. That's good. That's good. That reminds me of something that in this interview, Dorothea says something about that. That's it's about the organization. Anyway, yeah, we'll have a look at the at this this new thing. By the way, what do you think about this font? I think it's great with the large pull quotes. I just think they're a little too big, maybe, because then we get really big ones and they won't fit. But this is, I'm on the way to a new design care of Fabrizio, so that's another thing that's been delayed. But I think that the handbook or the website looks a little bit better in the sense that now it looks. Can you see it? Yes, it looks a little bit like a book. It's not perfect. I will obviously try to make it a little bit nicer, but this is the kind of stuff it looks like now. So
I like it a lot. I think it looks great.
It's better. It's absolutely better than it was. And I've only moved about half of the stuff from Fabrizio on here. Here's the SWATs, Students with Ability and Technology. I think it feels. It's looking a little bit more like something people would be proud of, at this point. Although it doesn't have their names on it, so Anyway, we'll get there. So okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Well, I'll maybe see you, Paul, if we need to have a meeting before Wednesday. Just let me know. But you'll see some emails from me. And Direcshi, thanks a lot also for taking care of my aunt in advance. I really appreciate it. She needs some help down there. And so I'm sending a copy of the chat. And
I met Julia in Madrid. Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Okay, that's Peeragogy in action right there. That's wonderful.
That's great.
One of you will have to tell us more about that. Thank you. That's great. Indeed. So, okay, well, news to look forward to next time. These kinds of networking things are in process. Cheerio. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Have a good week.